we're generally booking pretty far out, which is crazy because a lot of people are thinking still at this time and date, like, we can get engaged and then a year later we're getting married. That is a good tip that is not the way it works.
If you're planning a wedding and want all the secret tips for a smoother wedding day experience, then stick around as we interview some of the top professionals in the wedding industry. We are Coastline Studios, a fun-loving team of filmmakers who specialize in creating custom wedding films alongside some extremely talented people. Welcome to Let's Talk Weddings. Today we're talking with Jenna and Stephanie from the Cheney Place, one of Michigan's most booked venues all year round. From ceremonies through the reception, this all-in-one venue crew will help you answer the questions you need to know when considering wedding venues.
Well, Steph and Jenna, thanks for letting us join you today. We're at this amazing venue, the Cheney Place. Have you guys been here quite a while?
Oh, I'll go.
You get to go.
I'll go, yeah, absolutely. So I have been here for going on about 4-ish years,
Okay.
Give or take a year or two. And yeah, when I originally started, it was a wedding venue, but not quite to the scale it is today. This whole section was just empty, just completely just dead space.
Yeah, so we've met a lot of people that have been in the building before it was the Cheney Place, which is kind of fun to hear about it because we don't even know all those things. But yeah, I'm Jenna. I've been here 5 years.
Awesome.
Like that was a good segue.
So jumping into the first topic, when a couple is looking for a venue for their wedding, what should they know about their wedding coming into it?
I think the biggest thing they should have figured out is their budget, because that's going to answer 10,000 questions. The $10,000 answer, I guess you could say. I didn't plan that. That was good.
I think really important too off of that, especially on the get-go of your search, is an estimated guest count. People oftentimes contact us and they're like, oh, I haven't really thought about it. I'm like, that's pretty key, because if you're over our amount that we can have here, we can't host you. And a lot of people don't figure that out until they book, and it's like, ooh. For us it's not too big of a thing because we actually are a relatively large venue in Grand Rapids, but they're like, yeah, 400 people, you can't fit that. Like, a lot of venues would be limited to that number. So I think that's a really good starting point. Steph said budget, that's also great. Dates is a good thing. If they're like, we only are looking for this one date, that's something to ask right off the bat, because a lot of venues won't have it. So flexibility in that, or saying, yeah, I'm looking for somewhere in this range, or open to Fridays and Saturdays, is really important.
How far in advance do people typically book venues? Are you guys like first on the list? There's all these different things. Doesn't everybody?
Everyone thinks that.
Everyone wants that. But I mean, I would assume venues are.
Venues should be your number one. That's what we generally, especially to like tours and stuff, will say, you get your venue, and then that's going to answer so many questions about the style of venue you're going to have, what vendors you can book. So a lot of places require that you choose these 5 vendors, or these are the only vendors you can have, or you can have whoever you want, which is great if you have one of those venues. But yeah, so that's going to answer a ton of your questions for sure once you actually book the venue. Timing wise, it totally depends on the time of year, I would say.
I would generally say for Saturdays, we estimate about 2 years out. Fridays are a little bit,
Year and a half.
Yeah, 15 months to a year, I would say. But somewhere in that realm, we're generally booking pretty far out, which is crazy because a lot of people are thinking still at this time and date, like, we can get engaged and then a year later we're getting married. That is a good tip, that is not the way it works.
Do a lot of people book you before they're even engaged, or does that happen?
I'd say, yeah.
Okay, because that's not a lot of people are engaged for 2 years, I would assume.
Totally.
So
I think a lot of people are starting to look before they're engaged. Brides are getting smarter where they know that we're booking out further. So they're like, okay, I'm going to have that in the back of my mind. Maybe I'm going to tour with my almost fiance. And then when we get engaged, we're ready to put down the deposit. But I think people are getting smart that we know that those times are changing. People are letting them know that, so they're starting to look a little bit earlier on.
Totally.
Which is great.
Yeah, it's nice. You definitely can tell when they're not engaged yet because they're really like awkward about it, and we're like, it's fine, we don't care. Like, a lot of people do that. Yeah, it's totally
it's normal.
Yeah, absolutely.
I feel okay about that. guys here have a unique thing where you can not only do just the reception, but also the ceremony and the reception. Do you say that's a unique feature that if you're looking for a venue, is that something that a lot of people would find valuable? What are some of the benefits of that?
I would say, yes. Ever since we added on ceremonies, like 90%, would you go that high? 90% of our weddings will add on their ceremony, especially for out-of-town guests. It's so nice to just get to one spot, you're there. And same with like for the bride and groom during the day, like bridal party getting ready. Once you're here, they're able to get ready on site. Once you're here in the morning, you're just there for the whole day. So just timing-wise of, we gotta go to the hair salon, then we gotta go to the church, and then we gotta go here, and then we gotta go there, and blah, blah, blah. Just gets
saves
a little...
on transportation then, it saves on a lot of things.
Do you see any downfalls with having an all-in-one venue?
That's a good question.
I think about it on the other side so often that I don't.
I know.
I mean, it's going to limit your photo options. For the Cheney Place, it's nice because we do have a lot of photo options in our building. But if you're at a venue that doesn't, or if it's really crummy outside where you can't even access outside the building and you're just inside all day, I definitely think it could limit photography options.
Totally. Okay. Another thing I'll notice too is if, since your guests are only staying in one spot, we generally won't start your ceremonies until a bit later in the day. So if they aren't doing a first look maybe, or they don't want to see each other, they want to get all their photos after the ceremony, kind of limits the time that you have for that, since you can't really host a 3-hour-long cocktail hour because nobody wants to go to that cocktail hour. Guests are just going to get bored and leave, probably.
Hungry.
And hungry. Hangry. So that's one thing that we'll see. And generally, if you start at 3 o'clock, people, and you're not leaving, people aren't going to stay till 11:30. Like that's a long day for everybody. So that would probably be the only other downfall.
And we're big on the party feels. We want people to stay through the end.
We are all about the party.
That timeline is definitely limited.
Yeah, for sure.
What are some things that people look for when they're coming to a venue? I can think off the top of my head, where am I going to be getting ready? Maybe is one thing that somebody's looking into. What are some things that you find people ask a lot of questions about?
I think we did touch on it, but I think for a lot of people, a main concern is vendors, just because that's going to change your budget so much. So let's say you're at a country club, where you might only have 1 to 2 options because it's an in-house, it's their chef that's cooking. That might change their budget if they only have certain, menu styles or plate options, things like that. The bar too, like if it wasn't our bar service and they were looking through, 6 or a dozen that they have, there's going to be so many different price points in there. So if people aren't looking at that, I think they should be, just because that really changes your budget a ton based on who you're booking for vendors and who you're required to. So if you don't know that ahead of time, your budget's going to change quite a bit. Yeah.
So are there any golden rules when it comes to your location or venues in general?
I would start with saying candles. That's a really big one for any venue, but a lot of people are like, can I have lit candles? Do I have to use LED ones? I was going to say ugly, but I won't say that. So candlesticks are really popular these days. Can we light those? That sort of thing, which it needs to be an all-enclosed flame. So like either in a votive, or if they are using a candlestick, like a hurricane base, or I don't know the specific term at this moment, but something that's going to enclose that, basically. No fires is a plus.
We're very strong against no fires.
I would not have known that.
Yeah. I don't think it's like a make or break for people, and we do allow them. It's just you want to make sure guests are safe. You want to make sure someone's wearing one of those big sleeve things, they're not leaning over and getting caught on fire.
Let me get that bread basket.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Another rule, it's not like an official rule written anywhere, but we ask no loose glitter for, obvious reasons.
Confetti, things that people throw at ceremonies, we just don't allow inside. So like those lavender tosses, they're gorgeous. They look so good. I'm sure they're awesome in photos, but because we are flipping the space in a limited window, getting all that up
is a lot to clean
really, really challenging. And then what happens is when people exit, it's also stuck on their shoes. So then for us, because we're 2 levels, they're trekking it upstairs, they're trekking it all over, and basically for the next day's wedding, it's still on the floor. It's just there all the time. Yeah. We could even venture to say a week later.
Honestly, sometimes,
Yeah.
And we have a great cleaning staff too. But
it's still hard to get that off.
Glitter, it doesn't. No one's ever thrown glitter. I just,
Yeah.
So if people want to find you, what are the best ways for people to connect with you guys?
Definitely our website is probably the most accurate if you're wanting a lot of information. We are on social media as well. We have an Instagram at the Cheney Place. I think that's what it is, right? Yeah.
Yep, and Facebook as well. Getting further in touch, so right off of our website, there's a contact button. We'd love to just email it with clients in the get-go, send them more info, things like that. So email's really our primary. We'd love to touch base with you that way, but we're also big on the tour game. So if people are like, yeah, I'm interested, dates work, budget works, like we'd rather have them in, talk their ear off.
It's a lot easier to sell the space once you're in the space.
Yeah, and photos just don't do, take this as a tip, guys, like photos don't do venues justice, especially 100%. With how large ours is. Yeah. People come in and they're like, I had no idea that there were so many different areas and things like that. So touring
especially
is very important. Yeah.
Thanks for talking with us today. This has been awesome.
Thanks for having us, guys.
Yeah, we're happy to do it.
Well, thanks for joining us today on Let's Talk Weddings. We hope this was helpful for you, and feel free to share or subscribe and check out our future videos coming up.